Writing code is the fun part, the creative part. But deploying it, that's the moment your heart starts racing, where everything you've built goes live. It's high stakes, it can be nerve-wracking, and today we're going to talk about how to get it right. And this right here, this quote, it absolutely nails it. Think about the biggest disasters, those dreaded site-down moments. They usually aren't because of some weird bug in the code. Nope, they happen because of how the software was released. Your deployment strategy is just as critical as the code itself. So that's the big question, right? How do you deploy your software safely and efficiently? Well, that's what we're going to break down. We're going to walk through the entire playbook, from the most basic, straightforward methods to the super advanced techniques that power companies like Netflix. All right, so let's start at the beginning with the foundational methods. You can think of these as the building blocks every engineer really needs to understand, and we'll kick things off with the most basic approach you can possibly imagine. This is the recreate deployment, and it is as simple as it sounds. You completely stop the old version of the app, and then you start up the new one. It's literally like turning one big switch off and then turning another one on. You'll often see this used for internal tools that can handle a little bit of downtime, like, say, an HR application that's only really used during business hours anyway. And here we have the classic trade-off. What's the upside? It's dead simple. There's almost no complexity. But the downside? Well, it causes user-facing downtime, which, let's be honest, is a total deal-breaker for pretty much any modern app you can think of. Okay, so if taking the whole site down is a no-go, how do you fix it? Well, the next logical step is a rolling deployment. Instead of stopping everything at once, you gradually replace the old versions with new ones, bit by bit. Think about something like an e-commerce checkout service. It just cannot go offline. So this is a much, much better fit. Awesome, right? We solved the downtime problem. Users don't see a thing. But we've just created a whole new headache. For a little while, you've got two different versions of your app running at the same time. And that means you have to be super careful about stuff like database compatibility, making sure both the old and new versions can play nicely with the same data. All right, so rolling deployments are great, but what if you need even more control? What if your app is so mission critical that you absolutely cannot afford a single mistake? This brings us to our next set of strategies, which are all about giving yourself a safety net. This is called blue-green deployment. Okay, picture this. You have two totally identical production environments. Let's call them blue and green. Blue is what your users are on right now. Green is where you've deployed the new version. Once you're ready, you just flip a switch at the router and all traffic instantly goes from blue to green. It is the ultimate undo button. If something's wrong, just flip it right back. You can see why this is perfect for a critical update to something like a mobile banking app. The benefit here is huge. You get an instant zero downtime rollback. It is the absolute safest way to revert if you spot a problem. But what's the catch? You guessed it, money. You are literally running double the hardware. And that can get really expensive really fast. It's that classic engineering trade-off, safety versus cost. Another really powerful safety strategy is the Canary deployment. And the name comes from exactly what you're thinking, the old canary in a coal mine. The idea is you release the new version to a tiny group of users, maybe just 1%, while everyone else stays on the old version. You're basically testing the waters with real people. This is a super common way for, say, a social media platform to test out a new feature. So the huge win here is safety. By limiting the release, you limit what we call the blast radius if something goes wrong. But there's a big but here. This strategy is pretty much useless unless you have really sophisticated monitoring. You have to watch that small group of users like a hawk to see if the new version is performing okay before you even think about rolling it out to more people. Okay, now we're getting into the really cool stuff. These are the advanced, almost invisible strategies used by huge, large-scale systems to test new code with real traffic, often without users having any idea that it's even happening. First up, shadow deployment, and this one is seriously cool. You deploy the new version right alongside the old one, but here's the trick. It doesn't actually send any responses back to users. Instead, you mirror a copy of all the live traffic to it running in the background. This lets you see exactly how the new code performs under a real-world load with zero user impact. It's absolutely perfect for testing something performance critical, like a new recommendation engine. The payoff here is absolutely massive. You get priceless data on how your new code holds up in the wild, all before a single user touches it. The downside, as you can probably guess, is that this is not for the faint of heart. Setting up this kind of traffic mirroring is incredibly complex and can be really expensive to get right. And last but not least, we have feature toggles, also known as feature flags. This one fundamentally changes the game. With this strategy, you deploy new code to production, but it's hidden behind a toggle. It's turned off by default. Then, whenever you want, without doing a whole new deployment, you can just flip that toggle on and enable the feature. This totally decouples deploying code from releasing a feature. Netflix is famous for using this to test out new UI experiments. I mean, the power this gives you is just incredible. The flexibility, the granular control, it's just unparalleled. You can turn things on and off in an instant. The trade-off is that now all of this logic is living inside your codebase. And if you're not super careful, you can end up with this tangled web of flags that becomes a total nightmare to manage. So, there you have it, 6 different strategies. And this brings us to what's probably the most important part. Becoming a great engineer isn't just about knowing these methods exist, it's about knowing how to choose the right tool for the right job. All right, let's pull this all together with this table. You can really see the trade-offs here. As the strategies get more complex, the risk usually goes down, but the cost goes way up. A simple recreate is high risk, but it's totally fine for an internal HR tool. A blue-green deployment for a banking app is super low risk, but you're paying for it. A massive platform is probably mixing and matching low-risk strategies like canaries and feature toggles. It all comes down to your project, your users, and your budget. And that really brings us to the key takeaway here. Anyone can write code. Good engineers write good code. But great engineers? They're the ones who know how to deploy it safely. Understanding these strategies is what takes you from just being a coder to someone who owns the entire lifecycle of a product. So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Think about the work you're doing, the projects your team is building, or even just the apps you use every single day. Which one of these strategies is your next big project counting on?